Countryfile star Adam Henson has warned Rachel Reeves her inheritance tax raid hurts British farming. The BBC presenter, 59, urged the Chancellor to soften the blow of her budget by considering other simple alternatives. Adam, a second-generation tenant farmer, said he was worried about how policies announced at Ms. Reeves' first budget have been implemented. He explained how the Agricultural Property Relief, APR, and Business Property Relief, BPR, changes hurt British farming. Farmers across the country will descend on London on Monday to protest the budget announcements, which threaten the sector's future. Adam said national insurance hikes will also make the coming year difficult for businesses. When asked whether it was an attack on the countryside, the farmer said, "I'm not sure it's an attack on British farming, but it hurts. We're tenant farmers on a 1,600-acre property and thank goodness we've already diversified. That's thanks to my father who opened the Cotswolds Farm Park in 1971, because we have another form of income and I work in the media. But we are not going to make money in 2025 out of agriculture. I will be able to pay my rent but that's it. We will be looking continually at efficiencies. We'll be looking to try and increase revenue streams and cut costs. Our whole team understands that and we're going to have to work really, really hard to stand still. That affects business owners but also affects team members. We employ 130 people here and we want to continue doing so, but there's lots of business owners I talk to in various industries who are stripping staff. They're taking people out of their business because they can't afford them. We're not in that situation ourselves yet, but that's the worry. We were hoping for growth and actually what we might have is an increased number of unemployed." My comments are apolitical. The Labour government inherited a mess and they're trying to sort that mess out the best they can. The Chancellor in October announced that from April 2026, combined agricultural and business property assets up to £1 million will still receive 100% relief, but anything above that will be taxed at an effective rate of 20%. The Daily Express's Save Britain's Family Farms crusade has demanded a U-turn. Adam said, "I am worried about the way it was implemented. I think there should have been more consultation. There could have been some positive, clear advice. It's been talked about for years, whether it might change, and the government said no, we're not going to, and then they did. I think that's why many people are angry and upset that they weren't consulted. I think it could have been delivered in a better way." When asked if he would back Ms. Reeves pausing her budget changes, Adam said, "I suspect, and we've been told, they're not going to do a U-turn, but I think they need to listen to the professionals and look at the alternatives that there are to soften it. There are lots of other quite simple ways of softening the blow." He suggested raising the threshold of paying inheritance tax or ensuring that land passed down to family members only gets heaped with a levy if relatives sell it afterwards. Adam lives on the 1,600-acre property with his wife Charlie while their daughter Ella, 26, lives in Australia and son Alfie, 21, does finance in Leeds. The TV presenter, who launched the Big Farmland Bird Count on his Cotswold Farm Park on Friday, said, "The results from the APR and BPR changes mean that, particularly generational medium-sized farms that are asset-rich in the value of their land but their cash flow is a struggle. They'll be farming on an overdraft. When it gets handed to the next generation after the senior member of the family is deceased, then that will mean often land will have to be sold to pay the bill. Therein lies a huge amount of difficulty. There are people who will be able to talk to their accounts, solicitors and land agents to get advice on how to work their way around it. There are massive estates and landowners who will be able to pay the bill, because agriculture is so far-reaching from people who grow cherries in Kent to Scottish blackface sheep up in the mountains and everything in between. It'll affect everybody very, very differently. From next year, there will be a big cut to the basic payments scheme, the government support for production on many farms. The payments are being phased out, with the previous Conservative government announcing they would be abolished altogether by 2027. But Ms. Reeves has accelerated that process. Any farmer paid up to £30,000 will lose 76% of that in 2025, and any money paid beyond that first £30,000 will be cut altogether. Adam said, "I was taught at agricultural college to budget for 5 years ahead. If you were budgeting and investing in your property, buying machine, employing good quality staff and then suddenly you've lost a significant amount of money from your income but you thought you'd budgeted to have because that's what the government had told us prior to the budget. I think that's as shocking if not more shocking than the inheritance tax. Adam also raised concerns about risks to the nation's food security, adding that imports do not always meet the health and welfare standards for the UK. The UK produces around 60% of its food, but many farmers fear Ms. Reeves' inheritance tax raid means traditional farms will have to be sold and replaced by things like renewables. Adam said, "When you think what happened post-World War II, and let's dread the thought of anything like that ever happening again. But food security was on the tip of our tongues. We were a starving nation. We were growing food on every acre of land to feed ourselves. I think we need to be really careful about our own security but also our food quality, food safety and standards. Our farmers are on the back foot. We're penalized. We can't compete. But also, particularly I'd say, for our health and well-being. How on earth can we possibly be importing food that doesn't match our own food standards? It's a serious issue." A government spokeswoman said, "Our commitment to farmers remains steadfast. This government will invest £5 billion into farming over the next 2 years, the largest budget for sustainable food production in our country's history. We are going further with reforms to boost profits for farmers by backing British produce and reforming planning rules on farms to support food production. Our reform to agricultural and business property reliefs will mean farmers will pay a reduced inheritance tax rate of 20%, rather than the standard 40% for other businesses, and payments can be spread over 10 years, interest-free. This is a fair and balanced approach, which fixes the public services we all rely on, affecting around 500 estates a year." Here is a summary of internet users' reactions. "My own view is that the cost of farm machinery and approved agricultural courses at university should be deductible against inheritance tax for the 10 years it's payable. That would allow heirs to improve their farms and knowledge of farming, but would mean that heirs who did not intend farming would not escape the inheritance tax that everyone else has to pay. Eventually it would make farmland less attractive as an investment for those seeking to avoid death duties and bring the cost of land down for real farmers. You have to feel sorry for farmers who own their own farms. They're being hit by a triple whammy. VAT on private school fees. A huge increase in the vehicle excise duty on new Range Rovers and being asked to pay inheritance tax at a rate and with exceptions and delays the rest of us could only dream of. I am however surprised by how many capped offers still feel they need to show deference to their betters and give them their wholehearted support. Countryfile's Adam Henson is encouraging Britons to spot birds this month. "We live next to a farm and the only birds we see are crows and seagulls because they have frightened the other birds away. The Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981 forbids the shooting of crows and seagulls, so consequently they are now taking over the area. Maybe Countryfile's Adam Henson should be campaigning against the restrictive Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981, which is responsible for seeing off our small birds. It makes no sense to tax assets on a family working farm. Raw materials, farm machinery and herds have been taxed already and these farmers will make no money from them when handed down. It's a shameful attempt by Labour to make sure we're reliant on the EU for food as farms are taxed out of business.